our Tremolo series.
In this series, we're going to share with you tremolo pedals by some of our favorite manufacturers.
Thanks for joining us. Today we're looking at the Gravitas analog tremolo from Chase Bliss Audio.
Right. What a pedal it is.
It is.
First of all, the box. Like anybody cares. But it does. It comes in a beautiful box.
Okay.
Beautiful packaging. But in the box, and I'm holding this away from Pat because I don't want to.
Is there swag in there I want?
MIDI. Oh, those are the MIDI control change channels and stuff.
Oh, we've definitely tossed that one.
Yeah, so we're not getting the MIDI. But, a nice manual in here. And one of the things I think it's really important to point out, we like when companies throw together a whole bunch of different options that you can try out. But you don't need the options because we're gonna try and tell you how to actually work the pedal without going to the presets.
This is the PJ version of this, and there'll be a beard version of this video a little later.
So this video, face value, what if you pull this out of the box and you jump in and don't touch anything on the back? We're not even going to show you the dip switches.
Mystery.
But we'll tell you on the top of the pedal, there's what, like 10?
30?
Yeah, 50 dip
100?
switches. There's a lot of dip switches.
Yes.
But we finally cracked the code, and I think that we can tell you... I'm not sure we can 100% tell you everything the pedal can do, but I think we cracked the code on the dip switches and can put it in a way where you can understand it, and we'll do that in the next video. This video, face value. Tremolo. You'd expect to find a rate and a depth, and we have that right here. We have a rate and a depth. We also have a drive, a volume, and a tone. You'll notice that the volume is all the way up, so Chase Bliss recommends running that volume all the way up until you get into some of the more creative things. Then the drive... They even say maybe it shouldn't be called a drive because it's going to really push the clean headroom that you have. So with the volume all the way up, you can boost that up a little bit too. Rate, pretty self-explanatory. Of course, we have a tap switch to tap in the rate, and we'll talk more about that. Depth, pretty self-explanatory. Sway knob is a really nice touch. If you think of any waveform, right? There's a middle to that waveform. The sway knob will move the middle point. So you can go closer to the front of the waveform, closer to the back. So you're going to make the front take longer and the back drop off quicker or vice versa. Of course, the tone knob, which I'm not sure we've seen tone knobs a lot on tremolo pedals.
Not many.
I'm not even sure I can think of any right now.
There's one we might shoot later tonight that has a version of that.
A version, okay. Not many.
Not many.
That's just not many. What have I not done? These three switches here. So the first switch is 1, 2, 4, which sounds like quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes. If you get in the dip switches, you can pop it down to the row below, which would give you 3, 6, and 8. And if you play with the dip switches some more, you get the option of changing it between a standard tremolo, a harmonic tremolo, or a blend of the two. And if you'd like to hear that, you'll have to watch the second video because we're not touching dip switches. Face value 1, 2, and 4. And then this is really, really super interesting right here.
Yes.
What that does is allow you to shape either side of the wave. So you have a sine wave, you have a square wave, and you have a triangle wave. Imagine if you could break it right in the middle and then have a sine wave going into a triangle wave, or a square wave going into a sine wave, or a sine going into a square, or whatever. You can really shape the waveform. And so that's this whole little box, we think.
Yes.
It's pretty interesting.
Right.
So, believe it or not, that's the features, I think. And we're going to jump right into reference tone.
Yes, the Renvolta Mondata 8 into the Tyler Ampworks JT22.
Cool. We'll start with it where it's set. We have the depth at 50. We have the sway in the middle. So we're going to keep the sway in the middle for now. The tones, just a little bit. We'll come back to the tone. So let's run the depth knob first. Like normal.
All
right. We can turn the pedal on.
It's very throbby, as
And
it
that's
should.
the triangle wave on both sides. So triangle wave both sides. Slow, we'll do slowest speed, noon, and then the highest speed on the rate knob real quick. So that kind of takes care of the rate knob and the tap. So you have the tap there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can set it where you want it with the rate knob, or we can just tap it in. Should we run the tone knob real quick?
Yeah, because it is a nice feature in this thing. So.
Should I pull the depth or leave the depth all the way up? Well, we can pull it back a little bit.
Yeah, it gets really dark, and it doesn't get too bright. It almost, I was kind of doing that, circular picking thing, but you almost felt like at one point I went all the way back to this pickup. It got bright, but not crazy.
So, yeah, let's do sway.
All right.
So, I don't know what this is about.
Should we just lean to the side? Is the first part of the...
So that's why I was playing with the tap too. I wanted to get something kind of slow so you can really hear this.
Right.
I'm going to start with it in the middle. Then I'm going to move it all the way to the left, which should move the midpoint towards the front of the waveform. And then I'll move it all the way to the right, and that should move it towards the back.
Silly question. And it might be editing. What are the two waveforms? Like, if you're going to do that, are we on the...
We're on the triangle. So we're taking
just
the triangle.
on the one. Okay.
And I think we're kind of doing that. And
all right. I just want to make sure
And I don't know if it's going to move it more like a square. I guess it would. It would kind of lean it.
Right. Okay. Just curious. Inquiring minds. All right. There we go.
So it almost kind of reminds me of that sawtooth thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
So it's almost like they gave us 3 waveforms
Right.
and then they allowed us to move them so we could get more waveforms, and then they allow you to kind of mix them up. So the last thing would be this. Sine is on the edge, square is in the middle. So I think what I'm going to do, and hopefully you can see where the buttons are, I'm going to start on the triangle here, push both switches out so we're in sine wave, then push both switches all the way in so we're in square wave, and then leave the front of the waveform square and move through the other two on the back. And just kind of play around with it a little bit so you get an idea of what you can do.
All right.
And I'm going to crank the depth up even higher so we can really hear it.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, you could really... I like it. The one I kind of was digging there, we had the sine wave on the top and the square wave on the back. So let's say we really, really like that and we wanted to make sure we save that. So we could always come back to it. If we take and hold down the left side for 3 seconds and then add the other button for 3 seconds, it will store that in the left preset. So if I go... So that should be in the left. So then I did the opposite of that. If we wanted to store that in the right preset, I would hold this one down for 3 seconds. And then hold this one. And so now we have one in the left and one in the right, and they should be opposite of each other.
So here's the left. Yeah, turn it back on. I'm sorry. Some of that pulsing feels a lot like a reverse delay. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And then the only other thing we did mention, so there's 2 other jacks on the side. There's an expression pedal jack, which we're not going to talk about expression pedals at all, because we're not talking about dip switches at all. But if you think you can handle it, watch part 2.
Right. We may be wearing different clothes because it might not happen today.
I'm going to plug in just a regular tap button into the tap tempo side. And so now we should be able to control that externally. I always wonder if people are like, why would you do that? If you have a tap button there, why would you do that? Well, this things like this are nice. They're easier to get maybe in reach. Mm-hmm. Like if you need to put your tremolo pedal down underneath a shelf, or you need to put it up high on a shelf, to be able to drop something like this kind of near where your foot is. That's nice. The other thing that I think is really nice about that is if you get something like a disaster area clock or any of the multi switchers or whatever that have built-in clocks to them, you can send your clock signal there and that will set your tempo to whatever. Like you can run multiple things off of it. So maybe you have your delay, your tremolo, and everything kind of set the same. We showed the tone. The only thing we really didn't show was maybe that drive knob, what that sounds like if we crank that up. Do you just want to play for a second?
It didn't get louder. It did put a little hair on it. It felt like a little deeper.
I thought it got louder. Is that what you mean?
It's
It
not
got louder, it
significant.
didn't get hairy.
Right. It didn't get significantly louder. I didn't think.
Try it again.
Here we go again. Up. Okay, it got louder. But not as loud as I thought it was going to get. When you usually dime something, you usually kind of like hold your breath for a second.
Well, and the other thing too, like drive, you're expecting to get real gainy. It's pushing the amp a little bit more, but it's a lot of clean headroom. Mm-hmm. I know that's something you look for, is the ability to get some clean headroom out of it. So, can I say, I'll drop it. The perceived volume loss.
Can't have an episode without it.
Right, that happens when you engage a tremolo pedal. That really will allow you to overcome that. So you'll feel like you lost volume, but you boost that and you're good to go. So face value. That's a really loaded tremolo.
Right.
The waveform sculpting that you can do. Mm-hmm. You have different tap tempo times. You have quarter notes. And did we show that?
You talked about it. I don't remember if you did or not.
All right. So whatever we have, we'll tap in. I'll put it on one tap in quarters. We'll run through them real quick. So, the ability to do subdivisions.
Right.
The ability to shape both sides of the waveform, to move the center point of the waveform. Killer options to sculpt your favorite tremolo sound. And now, we get into the dip switches. But we're going to do that in another episode.
Right.
So, this is the point, I guess, where we say thank you to everybody that's been watching. Thank you for taking the time to subscribe, click the like button, click notifications, go out to Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. We really appreciate the friendships that we've been making through the show, and thank you for interacting with us. It's a blast. And I think with that...
I'm PJ on behalf of The Beard, reminding you, no matter what you hear, you never have too much gear. Is Mr. Barber in that box over there?
Oh, Barber.
David Baba! got it.